Hey students, I'm going to start reading you one of my favorite books. It's called Peak by Roland Smith. This is a book that I pretty much read every year now. I would have read it to you in class if we were there. You would all actually have a copy. We have a copy in the library for the kids now, but I'm going to read it to you starting today. It's a great adventure book. It has a lot of awesome characters. One of my favorite characters of all time, named Zopa. You'll get to meet him. But anyways, we are going to do some writing response to this, just like we would do it in class. I'm going to show you that at the very beginning right now so that you can be thinking about that as you listen to the first few chapters. I'm going to read a few chapters at a time because they're really short, and we'll upload them on video for you. So, you're going to write in 1 to 2 paragraphs. You're going to explain how the author, that's Roland Smith, hooks the reader and develops his main character in just the first few chapters. So you're going to be introduced to the main character right away. There's a really good hook in this book. He gets you into the book right away, another thing that I love about it. So I want you to write me 1 to 2 paragraphs on how the author does a good job of hooking the reader and how he develops his main character rather quickly so that you already start to like him. So I want you to think about this as I read these first few chapters to you. I'll show you this again at the very end. All right, Peak by Roland Smith. Chapter 1, The Assignment. My name is Peak. Yeah, I know, it's a weird name, but you don't get to pick your own name, or your parents', or a lot of other things in life for that matter. It could have been worse. My parents could have named me Glacier, Abyss, Crampon. No, I'm not kidding. According to my mom, all of these names were on the list. Vincent, my literary mentor, at your school, this would be your English teacher, he asked me to write this for my year-end assignment. There are no grades at our school. When Vincent reads the sentence you just read, he'll say, Peak, that is a run-on sentence and chaotically parenthetical. Yeah, that's how he talks. Meaning it's a little confusing and choppy, and I'll tell him that is my life. It's parenthetical, and the chaos is due to the fact that I'm starting this assignment in the back of a Toyota pickup in Tibet, aka China, with an automatic pencil that doesn't have an eraser, and it's not likely that I'm going to find an eraser around here. Vincent has also said that a good writer should draw the reader in by starting in the middle of the story with a hook, then go back and fill in what happened before the hook. Once you have the reader hooked, you can write whatever you want as you slowly reel them in. I guess Vincent thinks readers are fish. If that's the case, most of Vincent's fish have gotten away. He's written something like 20 literary novels, all of which are out of print. If he knew what he was talking about, why do I have to search the dark, moldering aisles of used bookstores to find his books? Now, I've done it, but remember this, Vincent, writers should tell the brutal truth in their own voice and not let individuals, society, or consequences dictate their words. And you thought no one was listening in your class. You also know that I really like your books, or I wouldn't waste my time trying to find them. Nor would I be trying to get this story down in the back of a truck in Tibet. Speaking of which, this morning we slowed down to get around a boulder the size of a school bus that had fallen in the middle of the road. In the USA, we would use dynamite or heavy equipment to move this. In Tibet, they use picks, sledgehammers, and prisoners in tattered, quilted coats to chip the boulder down to nothing. The prisoners smiled at us as we tried not to run over their shackled feet on the narrow road. Their cheerful faces were covered in nicks and cuts from the rock shrapnel. Those not chipping used crude wooden wheelbarrows to move the man-made gravel over to the potholes, where very old Tibetan prisoners used battered shovels and rakes to fill in the holes. Chinese soldiers in green uniforms with rifles slung over their shoulders stood around the 50-gallon barrels of smoke, burning cigarettes. The prisoners looked happier than the soldiers did. I wondered if the boulder would be gone by the time I came back through. I wondered if I would ever come back through. Okay, chapter 2 is called The Hook. I was only 2/3 up the wall when the sleet started to freeze onto the back terracotta. My fingers were numb. My nose was running. I didn't have a free hand to wipe my nose or enough rope to rappel above 500 feet to the ground. I had planned everything out so carefully, except for the weather. And now, it was uh-oh time. A gust of wind tried to peel me off the wall. I dug my fingers into the seam and I hugged the terracotta until it passed. I should have waited until June to make the ascent, but no. Moron has to go up in March. Why? Because everything was ready and I have a problem with waiting. I had studied the wall, I had built all my custom protection, and I had picked the date. I was ready. And if the date passed, I might not try it at all. It doesn't take much to talk yourself out of a stunt like this. That's why there are over 6 billion people sitting safely inside homes, and one, moron, I shouted. Option 1, finish the climb, 264 feet up, or about 100 precarious finger holds, proving my fingers didn't break off like icicles. Option 2, climb down, a little over 500 feet, 250 finger holds. Option 3, wait for rescue. No, scratch that option. No one knew that I was even on the wall. By morning, providing someone actually looked up and saw me, I would be an icy gargoyle. And if I lived, my mom would drop me off the wall herself. Well, up it is then. I timed my moves between vicious blasts of wind, which were becoming more frequent the higher I climbed. The sleet turned to hail, pelting me like a swarm of frozen hornets. But the worst happened about 30 feet from the top. 15 measly fingerholds away. I had stopped to give the lactic acid searing my shoulders and arms a chance to simmer down. I was mouth breathing, partly from exertion, partly from terror, and I told myself I would make the final push as soon as I caught my breath. While I waited, a thick mist drifted in around me. The top of the wall disappeared, which was just as well. When you're tired and scared, 30 feet looks about the length of 2 football fields, and that can be pretty demoralizing. Scaling a wall happens 1 foothold and 1 handhold at a time. Thinking beyond that can weaken your resolve, and it's your will that gets you to the top as much as your muscles and your climbing skills. Finally, I started breathing through my runny nose again, kind of snorting really, but as I was able to close my mouth every other breath. This is it, I told myself. 15 more handholds and I've topped it. I reached up for the next seam and encountered a little snag. Well, a big snag, really. My right ear and cheek were frozen to the wall. To reach the top, you must have resolve, muscles, skill, and a face. Mine was anchored to the wall like a bolt, and a portion of it stayed there when I gathered enough resolve to tear it loose. Now, I was mad, which was exactly what I needed to finish the climb. Cursing with every vertical lunge, I stopped about 4 feet below the edge, tempted to tag this monster with the blood running down my cheek, but instead, I took the mountain stencil out of my pack. Cheating, I know, but you have to have 2 free hands to do it freehand. I slapped it on the wall, and I filled it in with blue spray paint. This is when the helicopter came up behind me and nearly blew me off the wall. "You are under arrest," an amplified voice shouted above the deafening rotors. I looked down. Most of the mist had been swirled away by the chopper rotors, and for the first time in an hour, I could see the busy street, 800 feet below the skyscraper. A black rope dropped down next to me, and 2 alarmed and angry faces leaned over the edge of the roof. "Take the rope." Oh, I wasn't about to take the rope. 4 feet away from the goal, I started up. "Take the rope." When my head reached the top of the railing, they hauled me up and cuffed my wrists behind my back. They were wearing SWAT gear and NYPD baseball caps, and there were a lot of them. One of the cops leaned close to my bloody ear. "What were you thinking?" he said. Then he jerked me to my feet and handed me off to a regular street cop. "Get this moron to emergency." And that's the end of chapter 2. Okay, take one last look at this. I'm going to read more for you to look at, but here's one last look at your assignment. 1 to 2 paragraphs talking about the hook and the main character.